South Dakota Retailers Association. Good morning.
Good morning, Steve. Thanks for having me in the studio. We've chatted a few times remotely, but pleased to be here with you in person.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So are you the executive director?
That is the title. Yes, I've been the executive director for the Retailers Association for almost exactly 8 years.
Wow.
Almost exactly. October 1 will be my 8-year anniversary.
Okay. So what did you do before this? Why retail, and then you want to represent the South Dakota retailers?
Well, so as mentioned, I've been with the Retailers Association for the last 8 years. Immediately prior to that, I worked 8 years in Governor Dennis Dugard's office. I was the Director of Policy and Operations for the state of South Dakota for his second term. In his first term, I was a policy advisor, and so I worked with guys like Dusty Johnson, who was the chief of staff at the time, and worked on like agriculture and game and fish and transportation, public safety, housing. I worked with a lot of those kinds of departments. Prior to that, I was actually the policy director in the Department of Agriculture. And before that, I taught history at the University of Nebraska. So kind of a weird background, but it's been a fantastic career. And working with the Retailers Association is fantastic because we get to work with small businesses all over the state, all of the time, including business owners like yourself, Steve. So thanks for being a member of the retailers.
Absolutely. So do you, is there something, well, first I'm thinking, are you a history buff still? Like, are you kind of a nerd with that stuff, or?
Well, yeah, I guess I'd say I'm kind of a history nerd. Yeah, I mean, I have a PhD in history. I've written a couple of history books, including one about Ed Lemon, who Lemon, South Dakota is named for. Okay. But I haven't written very many books recently. It's been, matter of fact, this year we're going at 11 years, I think, since my last book was published. But I just did a book review for the Historical Society here earlier this year, so I dabble a little bit.
Wow, that's cool. So you obviously have some history of South Dakota. You got passion for our state and communities. I don't, when you get in and you talk to these people, you have to hear so many different concerns, maybe. Is that the best way to put it?
Well, concerns or interests or perspectives. I mean, when I worked for Governor Dugard, one of the things that he talked about really enjoying about his job was he got the opportunity to see inside the nondescript steel building on the edge of town, and they make something that's really, really cool. Mm-hmm. And we were talking earlier, went to the South 40 Specialties grand opening here. And so you get an opportunity to drive through the industrial park there on the east side of town. And Watertown makes all sorts of really cool things. Right. And so as the executive director for South Dakota Retailers, I get to talk with small business owners just about every single day. I mean, certainly every week. You're familiar with the cup of the week sort of thing that we do on Facebook. We've done that for more than 400 straight weeks now. Wow. Where you go and you just meet with a different business owner and you feature them, on social media. Mm-hmm. And so it's this tremendous opportunity to see folks I've been in every single county in the state, not quite every community where we have a member, but we're pretty close. And so it's just this fascinating opportunity to see what different or how business looks different in different corners of the state. It's very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I get a little bit of that when you do interviews and they're not maybe from Watertown, but they've come here and get a little different perspective. You guys also, I mean, you have a lot to keep track of. You're tracking, maybe new laws or maybe taxes or maybe tourism. So you're having a class kind of a forum? Would that be your...
What we're calling is a community conversation is the title of the thing. But really what we're doing tomorrow morning in Millbank, tomorrow morning, 9:30 at the bank. It's not a bank. If you've ever been there, it's a coffee shop, downtown Millbank. Tomorrow morning, it'd be Tuesday. We're in Millbank. We're going to have a community conversation about a variety of different things. We're going to talk about the state of business. We're going to talk about credit card processing and how businesses can comply with kind of complicated credit card company rules so that they can, if they're seeking to do a surcharge, they can do that correctly. We're going to talk about sales tax changes. Millbank's one of the communities actually that's looking to take advantage of a new caps sales tax for a community where you can utilize additional sales tax resources at the municipal level to do capital improvement projects in that community. Millbank is actively talking about that. And then we're going to talk about a variety of other things. Vaping legislation has changed. The nature of retail in general, how the tourist season went, all those kinds of things. So it's going to be fun. Tomorrow morning, 9:30 at the bank in Millbank.
Okay, very good. So that should be pretty educational. And you were going to talk a little bit about complying rules too in that, or is that kind of a separate issue?
No, absolutely. We'll talk about credit card compliance with business owners specifically and give them an opportunity to ask questions or really go deep. I mean, if you as a consumer have been to a business and you've seen a business that has surcharging, they're surcharging to pass on the cost of that processing because they're getting dinged by the credit card processor. Mm-hmm. And there are a variety of ways for businesses to do that properly. They, can only go to a certain percentage amount. They have to make sure that the consumer is aware with signage, both at the entrance to the business and then at the register as well. It's got to get listed on the receipt. Those kinds of details. We want to make sure that businesses are complying with those rules properly. And sometimes it can honestly be very complicated.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they already have a lot going on. And if you have like food or beverages, I mean, I can't imagine sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things we're going to talk about is sales taxes. And so, if you think about what a business has to do, most people don't break it down like this, but you've got 4.2% statewide sales tax that's going to go up to 4.5% next year. Mm-hmm. In most communities, you've got a 2% municipal sales tax. So there you're at 6.2. Mm-hmm. Depending on your business, you've got a tourism tax in there that's 1.5%. You probably have a municipal gross receipts tax in there. So you add all those things up, and that's probably 8.7% for a lot of businesses, especially, when they're charging the tourism tax. And then, of course, sales taxes are going to change again if counties decide to utilize the new 0.5% county sales tax option. We just talked about this municipal option for the CAPS program, mm-hmm. plus the 0.3% that's going to go up in January or in July of 2027. You add all that stuff up and you might be north of 10% depending on the community that you're at and the time of year and your type of business. Wow. It's kind of interesting. And so we're going to go and break all that down for businesses to make sure that they're complying as well.
Wow. You think you'll see a push for not allowing that sunset to lift? Is that the right way to put it?
Well, so the reduction is sunsetted next July. Mm-hmm. I think we've been talking about that for a while, except that in this last legislative session, you may recall, there was a particular bill that had that 0.3% increase go towards owner-occupied property tax relief. And so when that goes back up at the state level from 4.2 to 4.5 on July 1st, 2027, that 0.3%, which generates about $110 million a year or so, is earmarked currently for owner-occupied property tax relief. And so I don't think that that's likely to go away. I think that was part of the sales tax to property tax relief conversation that took place in the last legislative session.
Okay, all right. So when you talk about business as overall, as a whole, maybe in South Dakota, how is the state of business?
I'd say that is pretty good overall. We're not really wrapping up the tourist season, but we're back to school in many places. And so for a lot of folks, that going back to school kind of signals the end of tourist season. Although it's interesting, the shoulder season, as folks would talk about, in September, even maybe into October, is getting more robust. We certainly are aware that nationally, gas prices or fuel prices are a topic for a lot of people. Interestingly, as fuel prices go up, that generally tends to increase the cost of your airline flights as well, because jet fuel is more expensive than motor fuel, right? Or automobile fuel. And so those plane ticket prices go up. As that happens and as inflation expands, a lot more people vacation closer to home. And so what that means for South Dakota in America's 250 year is that actually you end up getting more tourists than you otherwise would. It sounds ironic. Oh, as fuel prices, more people would come to South Dakota? Well, yes, because it's cheaper to drive than it is to fly.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a lot of businesses, this year was pretty decent. I don't want to say that it was amazing. A lot of businesses talk about on par with last year, but most businesses, and for our organization, we are retail businesses, restaurant, hospitality, grocery, a lot of trades. So we see kind of the gamut. For a lot of those businesses, they're holding their own right now. It was a decent season, but not amazing. You know, we talk about rally traffic a little bit. Rally traffic was definitely down a little bit from last year, but that's to be expected in the year after a 5. Last year was the 85th rally. This year's the 86th. So you almost always see a little bit of a step down there. People are saying strong rally traffic, not amazing, but also interestingly, for the rally proper, not necessarily the 2 weekends of the rally. A lot of bikers came early. A lot of bikers are staying late or maybe came late to beat sort of the main focus of the rally. And so for those businesses that cater to rally traffic, the rally in general, and August especially, was an okay time. Small businesses in South Dakota, they're holding their own.
Yeah. Well, I would like to think that, you know, as if people are traveling less through airline, maybe it's kind of getting back to the, you hear the back roads and things like that, hit the back roads of this place or that place. And you can kind of take those little cruises and see the communities you haven't been to and you've lived here your whole life. I hear a lot of that. So
absolutely. You know, if you're riding a motorcycle out to Sturgis, for example, there are innumerable ways to get there. And the interstate, while it's busy, doesn't have to be the only one. You know, 212 here is a great place to go east to west. Highway 14 is a great place to go east to west. Highway 20 is kind of a scenic route to go east to west. One of the interesting things we are kind of seeing, though, is we're bumping up on the edge of the baby boomers to retirement. And we've started to see that for a while. What that has meant, though, is, of course, a lot of business owners who are nearing retirement age are looking to transition that business. And so we've seen quite a few businesses change hands. What that also means, though, especially, hey, students at Lake Area Technical College, if you're listening, there are tons and tons and tons of opportunities to take over existing business and existing clientele, run it in a 21st century fashion, run it as, you know, a new young entrepreneur would, but with an existing clientele and existing resources. It's an amazing opportunity for young would-be entrepreneurs right now, and that's going to continue for the next several years. And so if you're getting involved in a trade or a business, or you're looking to, it's a great time to look at investing in a business.
That's awesome. We just had Dr. Melissa Meidinger in here, and she's a South Dakota Business Development Center, Small Business Development Center.
Yeah, it's a Small Business Development Center. Absolutely. Yeah, we partner with them pretty regularly.
Okay, that's exactly what she was talking about in her last segment with us, was the transition and how these retired, soon-to-be retired owners, maybe even ones that don't have family or they don't want to take over, they're not sure what to do now. How do we transition, or is this just the end of my legacy in business? So yeah, that's very interesting. Is there somehow people can get advice, you think, on some of that?
Well, I'm glad you brought it up, actually, because that was where I was going to go next. Succession planning is a complicated business. And so one of the things that we've started to do for our members is we've got a quick one-page sheet, for lack of a better term, things to think about if you're looking to transition out of your business. How do you value your business? Where do you find somebody to take over your business? How long does this process take? Is there somebody out there who can actually help me walk through these kinds of steps? The answer to all that is yes. You go to our website, sdra.org, or give us a call, 224-5050. It's easy to find us on the website, South Dakota Retailers. You Google us, you'll find us. We've got some succession planning tools for business owners that are thinking about transitioning. And one thing I would say, if there are any business owners who are considering transitioning, be sure you're being planful about it. You're going to end up better. You're going to create an opportunity for the next generation. It takes just a little bit of work to transition that, but it's way better to hand that business off to a young entrepreneur than it is to close the door, put the padlock on there, and walk away. Definitely a better thing, not only for the business owners themselves, but for the communities that they're in as well.
So are we thinking like 5 years ahead, 7, 10? When do you think you should start planning?
Well, I'll say the thing that everybody would say, it's never too early to begin planning, right? It's not really going to take 5 years. I mean, if you're transitioning within your family or like an employee that you know that you want to transition to, I wouldn't say that there's a set time period on it. The key is if you're going to transition internally, again, whether it's family or an employee, have a conversation. Because what you have in mind in your head and what that son, daughter, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, employee has might be completely different. And so the real key is to have a conversation. Let people know what you're thinking. And then that way you can begin that process. And maybe it will take 5 years, or maybe it'll take 5 months. Who knows? But the first step absolutely is to have that conversation. And if you are thinking about it yourself and you haven't talked about it with, say, your spouse or your business partner, it's never too early to start that conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of laying the groundwork before you get to the big deal.
Absolutely.
So are there some things we'll have it's a few months away yet, but the legislative session, are there some issues starting to come to vision or?
Well, definitely there are. I mean, I feel like this year we've been talking about like elections and politics the whole year long. I mean, of course, we had the June primary election, and then that led to a gubernatorial runoff, the first one in the history of the state, right? Mm-hmm. And we, of course, have a general election coming up in November. And so not all of the seats are filled in the legislature, but right now, out of the 105 legislators, 97 are Republicans and 8 are Democrats. I would guess that after the November election, we'll be somewhere in that ballpark again. There could be, I don't know, maybe as many as 12 Democrats, maybe as few as a half dozen, but it'll be somewhere in that ballpark. And so we've still got that box to check, to figure out exactly what the composition of the legislature will be. Then, of course, there's a gubernatorial election as well, and so we'll see whether Governor Roden's support in the runoff carries through. That would seem likely to me, but we'll see. I mean, Dan Hollers is a decent guy, and we'll see how the gubernatorial election between Larry Roden, who, of course, has the Republican nomination, and Dan Hollers, who's, of course, the Democrat. We'll see how that turns out in November. Mm-hmm. Let's assume, just for argument's sake, that the legislative composition is roughly what it is right now, and that we're not going to see a dramatic change, which would be Governor Roden will come back, is what we would like, which seems likely right now. I mean, we've had Republican governors since 1978. And so that seems likely. So just for our purposes, let's talk about that. If that's the case, I don't expect a huge sea change in the legislature. We'll be about the same composition. Definitely every governor who comes in has, policy agendas that they're looking to discuss. I do think that we're going to see some high level topics though. You've seen it in the news lately, these automatic license plate reading cameras, flock cameras. That was talked about in Aberdeen here recently, and other municipalities are having that conversation as well. I definitely think that the legislature is going to weigh in this area. Current Attorney General Marty Jackley has talked about this, but of course, come January, he's not going to be the Attorney General anymore. He's running for United States Congress. And so we'll have to see whether his would-be successor, Lance Russell, decides to take this up. Either way, I do think that the legislature is going to talk about that. So that'll be kind of interesting. Related to the sort of quote unquote big brother thing, I think that algorithmic pricing is something that people could talk about. We were talking about this a little bit before. Algorithmic pricing is not what you see on, say, your grocery store shelf where there's a digital price tag there. That is not algorithmic pricing. What algorithmic pricing is if you 3 months ago look up your plane ticket to go to Tahiti next April and you put it off for a while, and then 2 weeks before you want to go, then you look it up again, you're like, hey, the price has changed. Well, there are algorithms that track your individual online purchasing presence, follow your habits, and then sometimes, in some cases, change the price accordingly. This is having a lot of conversation nationally, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if we wade into this area in South Dakota. I don't really know if this is a state level fix. I think it's more of a federal fix, but I can almost guarantee that we're going to have a conversation about about it. And again, for listeners out there, I want to be really clear. That is not what your grocery store is doing. That's not what your retail business is doing. In your brick and mortar store, that's not taking place, right now at all. This is almost exclusively online.
Wow, it sounds like a AI new age version of negotiating, except if you're not very good at purchasing when you should or negotiating, you're going to pay more than someone else.
It's an interesting phenomenon in the same way that, these automatic license plate reading cameras are tracking people from place to place. The advent of AI absolutely raises privacy questions that are going to have to get kind of sorted out. And I don't think that anybody really knows exactly what that's going to look like. But I think that individuals have a right to be concerned, to at least have, some ability to say, well, wait, just because we can, does that mean we should? And I think that these conversations are definitely going to happen in January. We talked a little bit about sales taxes before. I don't think that there are going to be any additional sales tax changes in the legislative session come January. But what we are probably going to see is, how are we going to navigate the legislative changes that took place this January and February and March of 2026, meaning we addressed property tax relief largely through changes in the sales tax. We're going to have to figure out in January of 27 what exactly that looks like, because none of those things have taken place yet. The new municipal tax we talked about, the earliest that could go into effect is January 27. The county sales tax option we talked about, the earliest that could go into effect is January of 27. The sales tax increase at the state level from 4.2 to 4.5, that's going to go into effect in July of 27. And so I'm sure we'll be talking about exactly how all of these things get navigated come January. It's never boring. There's usually 500 or 600 bills introduced. And so, we're definitely going to see these topics and a whole lot more come January.
Wow. Are you by chance seeing, if you deal with property and landowners, et cetera, are you seeing where some people are having issue with the, owner occupied homes, and your, even farmland is usually has the family living there, but then you have more and more apartments going up, and some people are starting to buzz, well, they're not paying their fair share then of property tax and yada, yada.
For sure. This has been a topic of conversation for at least the last 5 years. I mean, we did 3 legislative summer studies on this thing. I think over the last 2 years total, I think that it was close to 80 different bills on property taxes that were introduced. Ultimately, what happened was, there are 3 classes of property for taxation purposes in South Dakota. Agricultural, that you just referenced, that'd be farm and ranch ground. Commercial, or what is kind of called, or which is sometimes called non-agricultural other, and then owner occupied. So of the 3, owner occupied would be the homes that most people live in. Commercial property tax rates are paid for by the people who live in apartments, and then agriculture would be the farm and ranchers. The property tax relief that we saw was solely for owner-occupied property taxpayers. And so in the 2026 legislative session earlier this year, that was the class of property that saw property tax relief. Not small business owners that pay commercial property taxes, including anybody who's operating any kind of a business, or apartment complexes, because they don't pay owner-occupied, they pay the commercial rate. And so the owner-occupied property tax relief was not extended to commercial and agricultural. Are people going to talk about that? Yeah. I'm hopeful, though, that we can kind of just leave well enough alone on the property tax front for 1 year. We've been talking about it for so long, and there's been so many conversations about changes. We haven't actually let any of the changes go into effect. Because as I mentioned, we're not going to see these sales tax changes until 2027, and it takes the revenue a full year to have any reduction on property taxes. So you're not actually going to see owner-occupied property tax relief until 2028. So let's just leave well enough alone for a little while. Let's see how these things work, and then we can revisit in the future if we need to make tweaks. But to make further adjustments when we haven't even seen the existing relief seems to me personally like a fool's errand.
Sure. Wow. So do you deal with many realtors then in the South Dakota retailers? Are they like more residential? They seeing the housing market fluctuate, come get back around?
Well, first, I guess I'd just say we hear about realtors and real retailers being confused all the time. I mean, I'm certain that people have stopped into matter of fact, I know people have stopped into our office, said, oh, are you, I'm looking to sell a house. Are you the guys? No, we're not those folks. The realtors are those folks. We'll sell you stuff, but probably not a house. We definitely are seeing an interesting change in the market. If you remember in COVID, certainly owner-occupied houses were in high demand. Not as many were being built. A number of people were moving into the state. And so you saw this tremendous demand for housing. What that led to was, of course, increased prices in many cases, particularly Sioux Falls and Rapid City, but other places like Watertown saw housing price increases as well. And as those values increased, people paid more in property taxes. One thing we're seeing on the commercial side, though, is the way that people do business is changing, meaning going into an office all of the time or having a brick and mortar location might look different today. You might sell more things online. You might work from home more often. You might have a small place for your retail stuff, but you're selling it all online. And so you might not have a storefront, or maybe you do have an online presence and an online and a brick and mortar storefront. Things look a lot different today. There is open office space in a number of places. Retail space is actually kind of holding its own in a lot of, call it mid to larger size municipalities. But a lot of smaller rural communities are seeing that consolidation that's been taking place for years happen. So if you're in a rural area, sometimes your retail businesses, they're closing and they're selling. It's that transition that I talked about. In a lot of more urban areas, think Sioux Falls, Rapid, Brookings, Watertown, some of those places, the brick and mortar retail environment is very robust.
Oh, okay. Have you seen... with AI specifically, have you seen it cause any issues for businesses? And are there some that are already using it?
Well, definitely some businesses are using AI. With any new technology, there are challenges and opportunities. With the advent of the internet, people talked about, the death of retail. Well, not at all. I mean, we had the internet for quite a long time now, and retail is still going pretty strong, right? Yeah. But what it does mean, it's going to look different. It's going to look different. And I mean, you see how AI gets used every single day when you open your social media. Somebody's using AI to create an image in the past when you maybe had to hire somebody to do that. You definitely see AI in automated responses to things. If you call some larger businesses and you get an automated response and it kind of sounds like a person and you're maybe having a conversation, but then something feels a little off, that's an AI conversation. You're not actually talking with a human being, right? And so businesses are also using it to, analyze who their customers are and how to reach those customers better. They're certainly communicating differently, whether that's an automated text response or whether that's a voice response using AI. Workforce has been a challenge in South Dakota for years, for decades. And the way that businesses are addressing workforce challenges is through technology in all types of ways. I mean, automated checkouts, right? Where you're checking out maybe your own groceries or your own item. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're checking yourself into the hotel. If you've ever done that, you go in and there's a kiosk there and it spits out a card and, that's the key to your hotel room and you don't ever actually interact with, somebody in the hotel or innumerable other ways. So AI is definitely helping to address some workforce issues for some businesses. But as we talked about before with automatic license plate readers and a whole bunch of other things, there are challenges and concerns that come with it as well.
And you don't think it'll be like you go to a hotel and you see that concierge or whatever, that tomorrow he could be gone because AI is now here. Do you believe more of like I think they call it like a work shift where maybe that individual would work in a different kind of worldly position because now it's not available because there is AI?
Absolutely. And we've seen that historically. Whenever we've created labor-saving devices, it's not like there are a whole bunch of people, generally speaking, who aren't able to work. There are, we have a workforce shortage right now. We could hire, tens of thousands of more people in South Dakota and put them to work. You nailed it. The nature of the work is going to change, not the fact that there is work to be done. And so I think that's really what we're going to see. It also is going to create opportunities for people. You hear all the time about we'll call it business A. It's all online. You don't have to interact with anybody. You can go buy your item and off you run. Or business B, there's no online presence, or if there is, it's just items that you can see, but you go into a store and someone is assisting you, offering you a recommendation, or it's a new unique item that there's only one of a kind of. It's a customer service kind of experience as opposed to a true like purely commercial transaction. That's going to happen all over the place. The Ritz-Carlton is still going to continue to have somebody at the desk to welcome you, and they're still going to have a bellhop, and they're still going to have, a valet to park your car and those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. It's really going to be a difference in the kinds of experience that you see.
Mm-hmm. Well, today is my daughter's first day at Lake Area as a nurse, so I think of, okay, well, how much is that going to change from when, we graduated high school to now when she's 40? So she's already talking, you need the basics in health, of course, blood pressure, so on. But she's already talking about these, machines that can kind of do the diagnostic and transcribe it and zip the report to wherever it goes. Then you can read it and, just a lot of automation, but still, it seems there's a lot of human hands still involved with doing all that, even in the medical world, which maybe that's good to know.
And maybe even especially in the medical field, right? I mean, boy, Avera and Sanford and Monument and all of these other hospital systems would love to be able to hire more nurses. Mm-hmm. I mean, your daughter is 100% going to have a job when she graduates in a couple of years. Mm-hmm. It's going to happen. And that's one of the beauties about places like Lake Area Tech. I mean, obviously, I'm a little bit biased, shout out to President Sanderson. The opportunities for young people today, particularly at a place like Lake Area, where whether it's nursing or it's surgical tech or whether it's robotics or whether it's diesel or just all of these great different fields, these are in-demand occupations. And it's interesting, years ago, when I was graduating high school, a lot of people talked about going to a 4-year liberal arts school. I graduated from South Dakota State University, right? I mean, that's a thing that a lot of people did. What we've seen more recently is that there is a huge demand for electricians and plumbers and welders and drone operators and all sorts of people to do hands-on work. And that is not going away anytime soon. Mm-hmm. It's going to be really hard to get a robot to plumb your new house. Yep. I feel like that's going to be a thing for a long time. And so again, as technology evolves, the nature of the work that's in demand is going to continue to evolve. And these bright students who are going to Lake Area Tech this year, who just started, last week, right? We just had orientation and things. In a couple of years, they're going to graduate. A good share of them are going to graduate debt-free. They're going to go into a high-demand field. They can basically pick where they want to live. They're going to make a good salary. I mean, it's just fantastic.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a pretty good future to me. So
that sounds great to me too.
Well, I mean, is there anything that you want to make sure that you that's been going on that you want to talk about before we wrap up or anything?
Well, we kind of opened with the community conversation discussion again in Millbank tomorrow morning, 9:30 at the bank downtown. Take about an hour. We're not going to keep people very long, but hopefully provide them with some good information. The shop local mantra is something that a lot of people talk about, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people talk about. But truly, as you're looking to go back to school, and now a lot of school shopping has taken place, but I guarantee you somebody's going to say, oh, these shoes don't work, or oh, my backpack ripped, or oh, I need a new whatever, glue stick or pencils or markers or all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Really, truly think about your local businesses. it's going to be easy for some people to think, oh, I should just go online and order that. I got to tell you what, it absolutely makes a difference when you buy those things locally, especially if you were starting athletics again here actively. We're going to have basketball games coming up in a few months. We've got football games coming that have already taken place. Go look around at your local schools and look at the businesses that support those activities that you and your kids are involved with. Mm-hmm. And those are the folks where you should really think about supporting, because those businesses cannot support all of those local things, whether it's FFA or 4-H or the dance troupe or soccer or football or whatever it is. They can't support those things unless people in the public, members of the community, support them. So really, really think about, especially as we're going back to school.
Awesome. And I think from my retail experience, and it's been a while, but that stereotypical maybe gap some people were talking in pricing, where a local person is just so much more expensive than your box store. And I think that gap has gotten significantly closer as far as pricing goes. And yet they are still the ones that are supporting your local, where not always the box stores are always kind of that backbone. The local guys are.
I was going to say, when we talk about shop local, look at the mom and pops. Those are the folks, generally speaking, who've got their sign up, in the gym or on the gym floor or on the fence at the, in the outfield or, along the sidelines of the football field. Those are the folks. And take advantage of the opportunity to step into those businesses, especially if you haven't for a while. A lot of business has changed, and the days where, your small local retailer wasn't able to get that thing that you wanted, in many cases, long gone, and you'll probably be surprised at how affordable a lot of things are for your local retail business.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, I remember too, a lot of your locals are online. So if you really don't want to leave the couch, you could buy it from them across the street and they'll ship it over to you or whatever. So
absolutely right. I mean, the vast majority of small mom and pop businesses have an online presence, whether that's Facebook or whether that's their own website. Take a look at those folks too. It really does make a difference for them and for your community.
Yeah. Awesome. Anything else you want to touch on while you're here?
Well, it's Watertown is sort of second home now, right? Yeah. So I actually walked down. We have a place downtown, and it's just less than a mile to walk down to your studio here and walk through the downtown. And just Watertown's a great community. There's a lot of really good things going on. Am really excited for what this community has looking ahead. I mean, inside baseball, Lake Area Tech is absolutely looking to grow. You see all of the different manufacturers in the area that are doing well. I mean, all communities have their challenges, but on the whole, Watertown is doing really, really good. And it's exciting to think about what Watertown's going to look like in the next few years. And so from a retail, restaurant, hospitality front, take a look at your local community again. Stop around. There are a lot of good places opening up. There are a lot of new things going on in existing businesses. I got to also have to give a shout out to former board member Sean Dempsey. There's great things going on at Dempsey's. He just won out in California, the gluten-free division of pizza, and his staff member, he won in the cheese division.
Yeah.
I mean, so here we've got in Watertown, South Dakota, some amazing pizza going out to California for the real California dairy pizza competition. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. We sometimes forget just how good we are. When you grow up in South Dakota, you're like, oh, shucks, I'm just from South Dakota. I grew up in a town of 700 people. It's like 650 now. I graduated from Lake Preston High School. Go Divers, right? Go Sharks, I guess it is. Iroquois Lake Preston Sharks. Graduated, 45 minutes down the road. And so often you think, whatever other place, the grass is greener on the other side. Not true, ladies and gentlemen, not true. We've got phenomenal things going in South Dakota, phenomenal things going in Watertown. Go check them out.
Yeah, and that reminded me real quick too of the trade area, if you will, that Watertown, I think now is somewhere in that 100 to 125,000 people trade area with all of these I mean, within 40, 50 minutes is nothing anymore.
Yeah, I think that there's a little more than 24 communities within 60 minutes of Watertown of any appreciable size. That's incredible.
Mhm.
That's incredible. And I mean, just to go back to my upbringing in Lake Preston, you're 30 minutes away from Brookings, you're about 40 minutes away from Watertown, you're about 45 from Madison, you're about 45 from Huron. We're right kind of in the middle, and each community had its own thing that it sort of had going on. And so, you remember coming up downtown Watertown to go buy shoes, and, just things are different in specific geographic areas. The hinterland around Watertown is phenomenal.
Mhm.
I mean, Echeline's got good things going. Castlewood's got good things going. Florence has good things going. Clark has good things going. By the way, shout out to the Clark amateur baseball team for getting second place in Class B in the amateur baseball tournament here. I played with Clark amateur baseball, I think 3 years ago. And so shout out to those guys too. All sorts of amazing things going on in Northeast South Dakota.
Absolutely. Wow. You have, your mind is just full of everything. You got all the most recent stuff and everything. Wow, that's amazing. You must have like an eidetic memory or something.
I don't think that's true at all. And some people might say I'm full of it, Steve.
Yeah. Well, that's good too. Full of knowledge, I'm sure. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else that you want to touch on? That
No, thanks for the opportunity to come in. I appreciate it. Again, if anybody is interested in what we've got going on at the Retailers Association, sdra.org, sdra.org. Google us, give us a call, and hopefully we'll see some folks in Millbank tomorrow morning, 9:30 at the bank.
Awesome. And being a member, you get a lot of updates too. You get the magazine, you get a newsletter too that has really good information. Sometimes it's shipping information or insurance or whatever. So yeah, definitely some great benefits there.
And we've got quite a few services. We actually just brought on a new business insurance option. Business insurance is one of those costs for a lot of folks that's been going up lately. And so hopefully we've got an option that could save some businesses money. Same information there. Go visit sdra.org and people can find out about that.
Awesome. Well, Executive Director Nathan Sanderson, thank you for joining us. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Steve. Always a pleasure.
All right. Well, we'll get back to the music here on Northeast Radio SD.
Well, it would have been cool.